G'day, my name is David. I love gardening. Today I wanted to share with you my Veggie Patch gardening, garden number 2. I showed a previous video of my garden number 1. This is my second Veggie Patch. In a backyard. I live on 8 acres, mainly scrub. This area where I've actually set up this Veggie Patch originally was covered in hundreds, thousands of Scotch thistles, had rubbish on it, and we cleared it all. And then I hired a rotary hoe and dug a plot which is basically 5 meters across, 20 meters long. I have the sun rises east-west actually across the top of us here, so follows the garden bed, follows east-west. Same with Veggie Patch. I should have mentioned that in Veggie Patch number 1, east-west, so we get the maximum amount of sun. I marked out a plot. I was fortunate enough on this property to find a whole heap of old galv pipe that was a polytunnel at one stage. It was actually all bent and twisted. It was totally wrecked, as if it had been driven over by an excavator. I actually then reformed these hoops. Some are a little bit wonky, but I reformed these as best I could. I had the intention of making a polytunnel up again, but it hasn't been necessary. So instead I actually use this for a trellis system to hang support on my plants, which I love doing. So I'm making use of things I have on the property, things I already have, without spending money. As well, I was fortunate enough, there was the remnants of an overhead irrigation system which I've put back into use. It was full of dirt and ants. I actually cleaned it all out and got it going again. So this is great for the purpose of this bed, for ease of watering. The first couple of years I just had formed beds. It was just plain dirt, and the maintenance was a nightmare. If you'd let it go for a couple of months, I'd end up having to bring in my ride-on mower, drop the blades right down to the dirt, and just basically plough along with my ride-on mower to take the weeds back. And after struggling with that after a couple of years, I went about collecting timber. Again, using things that were on the property. There was a lot of timber that was here on the property. I actually scavenged from my work and other works. I found, you can see down here, old pallets, bits of pallets. So we cut up the pallets and started using that to form the beds. So the first half we just used those timbers that we scavenged. As I went along and put in the timbers between the 3 beds, so we set up 3 beds roughly a metre across. Between the beds we laid down just some black plastic that we bought from our local hardware to try and mitigate weeds. Hasn't been too successful here, but for the most part it's easy to maintain. We have holes interspersed through the plastic deliberately so that when we catch water, it'll actually drain down the ground, and this actually acts as, I guess, a gutter to drain the water we want to. The property may see slopes from left to right, so we've got the garden beds running east-west with the sun, but we also got it running parallel to the slope of the land. So as water runs through, we catch it in the beds. We don't have beds running this way where the water would just run through. So we're trying to capture as much water as we can naturally without having to bring water in to use. As in garden bed number 1, absolute must is weed matting. Maintenance is just a joy. This may look bad, but 2 pulls and you can very quickly, your weeding's done. Maintenance wise, it's just great. Plastic is held in by just some bits of wire, different clips I've bought. Some things I've improvised, as you can see there. Pull this weed matting back, put in all your organic matter, dig it in, roll it back, and literally I can have this bed prepared in less than 30 minutes, where the amount of weeds is very little. So set these beds up. The weed matting actually that's a whole other exercise, an interesting exercise. People ask me how I actually cut this so perfectly. If you're interested, please leave comments down below and I'll show you my secret trick for cutting perfect holes. This weed matting, if you actually were to use a pair of scissors to cut those, you'd actually end up with frayed edges and the plastic all comes apart. So I've actually got a neat little trick. Let me know in the comments below if you want to know my trick. We've got in here asparagus. So this has been growing in here now for 4 years. So asparagus actually ends up being a fern. It is a massive, massive plant. It is really intriguing to see how this grows. Beautiful, beautiful plant. Can't pick it for the first couple of years, 2-3 years you don't pick it, and let the crown, it actually has a crown like a rhizome section in the ground, and once that actually establishes and gets all its nutrients in it, and following years you can come along and you can pick it. These are the seeds that form on asparagus, so in theory I can grab those and throw them around the place and we'll end up with more ferns growing. But we bought these crowns. There's two different varieties of asparagus here. We bought these from Bunnings and put them in, and we're in year 4, coming up in year 5. So big crop of asparagus this coming season. We've got a dripper hose in here. We don't use that very often. Just really depends on what plants you've actually got growing. If you've got some things that are susceptible to powdery mildews, etc., it's good to not wet the actual plants. So depending on the time of year, during winter I tend to use the dripper during winter so you don't get disease on the plants. These are tomatoes I've done from cuttings from plants up here. So I'll buy 1 punnet of tomatoes, and as the laterals come out, I'll snip them off, stick them in a beer bottle of water. When the roots come out, I'll plant them in the ground. And then I end up here, we've got 2, 4, 6 free plants, another punnet for free, just from plants that are already existing, tied up to the top here. Very basic system of timbers, stakes holding things upright, and simple Phillips head screwdriver through to the main beam. I've then heaped up all the soil. It's not pretty, but it's definitely functional. This is my eggplants this year. Previous years, I tend to go a little bit overboard. In here we could do, I have done historically, 90 tomato plants, 42 eggplants, it goes on and on, get massive yields, but this year I've gone a little bit more conservative. Got our Lebanese cucumbers here. Bought a couple of, Bunnings is my friend. These frames, trellis frames, are in the trellis section there in Bunnings. They're a 3-piece, they're separate pieces. You can buy them. They actually got a pair of legs on them. You buy 3 of them. What I did is I'd simply tied them together with a bit of wire to make up a flexible frame that I can move around. So in this instance, we've got our Lebanese cucumbers just going absolutely crazy. Masses of flowers. Again, this is one of those plants I like to treat a little bit mean. First fruit that come on it, I lop them off, give the plant a bit of a scare, and then it just goes crazy. It loves a bit of a beat up. So this is one of those plants as well that likes a bit of Epsom salts. I've mentioned Epsom salts in some of my other videos. Cucumbers, you give it a bit of a touch up with some Epsom salts, 2 tablespoons in a 9-litre watering can. Just pour it over the top and a little bit around the base of the plant. Eggplants again, they also love a bit of Epsom salts. So you can see this guy here is getting yellow leaves. It's a little bit deficient. It's got nutrient deficiency that Epsom salts will fix up. So this plant I didn't treat with Epsom salts. The other plants were actually having a bit of a struggle. I treated those. And this, I guess, is an experiment to show you the difference between using some Epsom salts, using some Epsom salts there, and what happens if you don't use Epsom salts when your plants are starting to struggle. So I will come back and give this guy, I won't torture him to death. I will give him a bit of a TLC and bring him back to life. But that just shows you one out of all of these I didn't do with Epsom salts, and it doesn't like it. Zucchinis, masses of zucchinis. I always have a mass of zucchinis. Just pick some. More golden nugget pumpkins. There's 8 or 9 on that one plant there, and the plant goes off down the back here. This is a bit of this spotting on here. It's powdery mildew. You get that when you start watering. If you water it in the evenings and you water frequently, and if you get too much foliage clustered together. So you look at these leaves. Most of these leaves on the zucchini are fantastic. There's no problems there. But if we look down over in the corner here, there's one here that's covered in the powdery mildew, and that's because it's sheltered. It's in a moist area. There's no airflow around it. So I always try to go along and lop off the surplus leaves, or the ones that are underneath that are getting poor circulation, before it causes me a problem. But I'm not too worried about these. It's so dry and hot at the moment. Trussed up tomatoes. These guys are it's getting 6-8 foot high. I've been picking tomatoes today. I think these are actually random tomatoes. These are they just popped up. These are, I think, are a Tommy Toe, and we've got some cherries growing here, and we'll get 60 tomatoes on one limb of these, 60 to 80 on each of these limbs. So these are great producing tomato. More zucchinis, bumper crop. We love our zucchinis. Great on the barbecue, great in stir fry. These are a relatively new plant that I've just gotten onto. Actually, it's a flower, artichokes. So we actually we planted some seeds and got some propagated and got them going. And we absolutely love artichoke. And so I've actually gone a bit crazy planting seeds, but also splitting the main plant. So when we've actually had a plant come up, it'll grow, it'll get a flower on it, cut the top off of it, you eat the flowers. Yum yum with butter. And then the plant starts to die, you cut it off at the base. And here's one that we've cut off at the base. And then all of a sudden you get shoots come out the side. So this has got 2 pups on it. One pup on the right here and a pup on the left. And this is when you actually dig this up in the ground, there's actually like a bulb, or again like a rhizome. There's a main branch quite large under the ground here, you can't see, and it'll probably be a foot long. You can actually just pull that, you can dig that up gently, and you can actually just split with a shovel. Just drive a shovel, take that off and take that pup off, and you end up with 2 plants plus the main original plant. You can then plant those pups. Now I've seen videos where they say you should get a whole heap, get as much roots as you possibly can, and that's what you need for that to survive, and plant it in the ground. Well, that certainly isn't 100% true. It is better if you can get the roots. But I've got some plants here where I actually split them off without pulling it out of the ground, and ended up with no roots whatsoever on the pups that I've pulled out. I then put those in the ground, and here I have 4 plants with 0 roots when I split them off the main plant. So here's one here, another here, 3rd, and a 4th little sucker over there. Now none of these had roots on them at all. I did a real poor job splitting them off the main branch. But the secret was keeping the moisture, keeping water up to the plants every day. And they have struck, and they're growing with a vengeance. The other really important thing that I did, having no roots, is the plant's going to obviously have a bit of a tough time getting moisture in. I actually lopped off at least 60% of the leaves on the plant that I transplanted. So you can see there's a remnants of an old branch there. I've lopped it off so that you don't. Again, there's one that I've lopped off. You can see all the old branches here that I've lopped the tops off, so just left the basic stem there and the very heart of the core of the plant. And the idea is so that the plant doesn't keep on doing its natural thing and drying out. It's photosynthesis and drying out and losing too much moisture. So cut it back, put it in, keep the moisture up, and I've had 100%, 100 out of 100. I did not lose a single pup that I broke off, even though there were no roots. So this plant here actually had 4 or 5 pups on it. I broke them off. So some of those guys up there are from this plant. I broke off very poorly. And we're only talking about a month ago that I've done that. I then put the original stem that was from the original plant back in the ground and just transplanted it. And already this plant here has produced more pups within a month. This had nothing on it. It was just that stem sticking out of the ground there. And now look at these massive pups. So this plant here is a particularly good plant, and I want to propagate as many plants from it. How vigorous this plant is. This plant is just very, very healthy. Interesting side note on this is my artichoke plants are covered in hundreds of ants, and they are covered in aphids and mites. But this particular plant here has been growing so vigorous. It's such a healthy plant. There is not one single pest on these anywhere. There are no mites, there are no whiteflies, and there are no aphids on this at all. Whereas these plants here, so we're literally a couple of metre away, you can actually see the ants on these, and all the underside of these plants are covered in, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. You can see all of the insects underneath there. You can see the aphids, there's whitefly, there's mites. The whole underside of these plants, these plants are just totally different. It's the same. It's all out of the same pack of seeds, the original plants. But this is such a healthy plant, and I want to propagate more of these. This particular one, and it's just a stronger, healthier, more insect-resistant artichoke. So keep an eye out for that sort of thing in the garden when you're doing your gardens. This is a bit of an experiment. Our property's got blackberries, like probably most acreage properties. This guy is a thornless variety of blackberry we've put in. Probably not the best place to put it, but it was something we picked up at Bunnings again. Got a good crop of blackberries out of this, beautiful to eat, and the bonus is no thorns. Love it. So that is our basic garden veggie patch number 2. Please like, share, subscribe. If you have any more videos you'd like to see me do, or more things you'd like to find information on in here, if you want to see me split an artichoke, I'll be happy to show you. Thank you.